Hello guys, welcome to another video in this Python tutorial series. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about list and tuple. So basically, list and tuple are another type of data type, just that they hold multiple item, not just the typical variable that we talked about earlier on in previous video. So let's take for example list now. List, for other people who are programmed in different languages, you come across something like an array. So list is almost similar to an array, just that in Python it's called a list. So for those who are not similar or familiar with an array, basically an array is a type of data type that takes in multiple values. So for example, we want to write a list now in Python. We'll declare a variable name. Let's say fruit. So it can take different type of data type. That it could take an integer, it could take a string, it could take a boolean, whichever one you want. So before you can write a fruit, it has to be enclosed in a square bracket and separated by a comma. So let's say we have an apple. That's a string. We could also say we have one, which is an integer. We could also say we have true, which is a boolean. So basically, a list takes in multiple values and it takes in different data types. And if we print out our fruits, you can see, you will see what is being displayed. So if you look at our console, you will see that our apple, one, and true is being displayed. So this is a typical example of a list, and each item in in a list is called an index. So and you start counting from zero. You don't start counting from one. Typically, that's how the computer counts. So an apple will be an index zero. One is going to be index one, and true is going to be index three. And how do we access these items basically? So if you want to access, let's say, the first item in our list, which is the index zero, which is apple, we are going to say fruit, then put a square bracket, and we can say like zero, like so. And if you run your code, you get an apple. So typically, this is how you access items in our list. Just put in the correct index. You can put in, make sure it's correct. And when I mean correct, I mean make sure you know the index you want to look for. It basically starts from zero and it can end in any number you want of your choice. So the first one is always zero, then it starts from one, two, three. So the third item on this list is going to be item two. So if you put it like so and run your code, you're going to get your fruit, your true. So that's it, true. So basically, this is a typical example of a list. So let's say also we want to add to a list. There are several ways you can add to a list, but I'm just going to be teaching you just one in this video, which is I think is the easiest. So if you want to add to a list, you could say the name of the list, fruit dot append. Then let's add an orange. So we could say orange. Then let's also run our print our fruit and then see what happens. Basically, this append usually adds it to the end of our list. So it doesn't come in the front, it just comes at the end. After true, we get orange. So let's run our code and see what we get. So you can see down in our code, we have our orange, which is as a result of our append. So basically, an append is a function that allows us to add to the end of our list. So I think that's all for list. In our next video, we'll also be talking about how to iterate over a list. But we can't end this video without talking about a tuple. A tuple is similar to a list, although the only key difference is that a tuple is immutable. What do I mean? You can't change the value of a tuple. Just like in a list you saw, we could append an item to it that is adding to the end. In a tuple, we can't append, we can't change the item in the list. Basically, tuples are used when we don't want to change anything inside our code. Something like, let's say, a coordinate, or if you are using Python for in web development, like a color. Those are the whole information that you won't want to change, or you don't want it to change in your code. So that's a basic. And to write a tuple, basically you can just declare the name of the tuple. Let's say animals. Then we could say tuple, instead of having a square bracket like the typical list, it has the normal normal brackets we've been using from the beginning. So you could say something like 255 255 255. So this is a typical example of color white in let's just change this to color. When you're using Python for web development, this is a typical example of color white. You notice that this is 255 255 255. It doesn't change when you run it in your code. It gives you a color white, or you could use it for a decoration of your choice. So, and you can't change it. That's just the main difference between a tuple. So in our next video, we'll also be talking about how to iterate over them. So until then, keep practicing and happy coding.